and welcome along to another Toon Under podcast. Joining me tonight is Keegan and Dimmi. Hi, guys, and how you doing? How you both doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Busy. Glad today is Thursday. I kept thinking it was Friday all day today, so I'm closing in on the weekend finally.
Yeah.
How you doing, Dimmi?
Good, mate. It's good to talk about potential signing number 2 coming up. Hopefully that's
indeed
opens the floodgates.
It is. We've got some breaking news that's been happening sort of just before the podcast's due to go out. So we've got a bit excited. We've finally got confirmation that Nick Pope is on Tyneside going for his medical. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about him. Supposedly a £10 million fee from Burnley. 30-year-old keeper, England international caps to his name as well. So actually a bit of an under the radar signing, that one, I think, but we'll come back to and have a chat about him. Also a little bit of talk on social media about the Ekitike bid being withdrawn and Newcastle walking away from the deal, but we'll share our opinions on the source and general feelings on that particular one. And then a little bit of news in terms of the bookies dropping the odds for Christian Eriksen to join the club as well. So, he would be an absolutely fantastic signing. The bookies are not ones to randomly want to just drop the markets on certain bets without a good reason for it. So maybe they've heard some rumors behind the scenes as well. So we'll cover that. Not a lot of else happening at the moment. We're still kind of seemingly in limbo with Sven Botman at the moment. AC Milan, the reports that they've pulled out of that, reports that they're still in it, reports that his teammates effectively been on TalkSport saying, keep an eye out for him because AC Milan can't match the money. We're going to have to wait and see on what happens with that one. And then not a lot else that's really on the radar at the moment. So I guess the one that is literally about to happen, hopefully, fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong with his medical, is Nick Pope. So we may as well have a bit of a chat about the player, the transfer itself, what we think of it, and see how we go. So I want to start off with Keegan first. I'm gonna throw over to you. You've done a little bit of homework on this one. You've got some stats of Nick Pope and comparing with Martin Dubravka. Just generally going through sort of the numbers of that one. So I'll let you take it away. Run us through the general comparisons between the two keepers and see what we can make of those.
Yeah, well, obviously I didn't know much about Nick Pope. I don't think many people, we all know who Nick Pope is, but if you actually dig a little bit deeper, the transfer really, really makes sense for the way that Eddie Howe has expressed how he wants to play next year or this year and into the future. So just looking at the numbers, Dubravka played 10 less games. Obviously, he was injured at the start of the year, so he only played 26. Pope played 36 and missed 2 games, which, durability is a good thing as well. He actually made 121 saves in his 36 games, and his save percentage was 73% compared to Dubravka's 67%. So he's obviously a better shot stopper as well. And Burnley did keep a lot of clean sheets last year. I think they actually ranked 10th in the league for clean sheets. So, it's not, I know obviously they were relegated and stuff like that, but their actually problem was scoring, not conceding like a lot of the teams down that end of the table were. But a couple of things that really stood out was his claims for high balls. He actually had 42 claims for high balls, whereas Dubravka only had 17. So, I know some people have criticised Dubravka for being a bit hesitant and maybe a bit flappy commanding his area over the journey, but I think with Pope, he looks like he really does command his area, and he actually might help settle the defence, knowing they've got a keeper who's confident to come out and take a high ball. Also, this is probably the biggest differential between the two keepers. For last year, Dubravka had 9 sweeper clearances. Pope had 28. Now, that's a lot. And with Eddie saying he wants to be a front half team and play a high line, that sweeper keeper is going to be really, really important. And if you've got someone like Pope who's really confident in playing that role, I think that's part of the reason. That's a big part of the reason why I think we actually signed him.
Yeah, it's all pointing towards a certain style of football from Eddie Howe that he wants to play. The fact that, and I think if you go along to, I think I pulled it off transfermarket.com or something. I pulled a website up today that listed the rankings of all the sweeper keepers throughout Europe, and Alisson at Liverpool is number one. And out of the English keepers or the Premier League keepers that were actually playing games, so Henderson was actually ranked quite highly, but obviously isn't playing very much for Man United. Pope was actually up there with the best of them, and he's actually the second ranked British-based keeper for sweeper clearances, which is a huge deal. Ticks a huge box for what Eddie Howe wants to play. Obviously, Lee will be in agreement with you that Martin Dubravka can be a bit flappy now and again. There was a number of times where Lee was adamant, and I tended to agree with him as well. Is that that he's pushed the ball out into danger, and we've conceded a goal from that rebound. So. It is something that it would be nice to see that sort of nice commanding keeper in the box. I've done my homework, as everyone does, as soon as you get linked with a player, straight off to YouTube to watch the highlight videos. And some of the saves that he's pulling off has been absolutely fantastic. So top draw keeper, still only 30. So it's not like he's over the hill yet. I mean, he's had England international call-ups and caps. The one question mark is his distribution of the ball, and that is something that I think has been highlighted because Martin Dubravka has been criticised for that and isn't necessarily that comfortable with the ball at his feet type keeper that Eddie Howe seemingly wants to use. But it doesn't necessarily add up that Nick Pope's going to be that much better anyway. But some of that could be down to style of play, that Burnley is literally kicking it long, as opposed to letting him play out from the back as well. So, Dimmy, I'll let you have a quick run through. How do you see that playing out in terms of the style of football we want? Do you think this is a good appointment and good signing? And what do you make of the fee? Because I think that's actually quite a bargain.
I think it's another shrewd signing by the regime. I think Trippier we got on a bargain. Matty Target, we saw how well he did on loan, and now we've signed him for 12 million. This is another one for 10 million. Is a steal really at the current prices in the market, and you see some stupid prices all over the Premier League in Europe. So to get a established Premier League goalkeeper, an England international for $10 million or £10 million, I think that is a steal. And I think in terms of the style, I think a little bit is probably overblown in terms of how he plays with his feet. I think that isn't as important, I feel, as what Keegan said, the sweeper keeper. I think if you can become a sweeper keeper and push your back four another 10, 15 yards up the pitch, that's very important. And if your centre halves and your fullbacks are so comfortable on the ball, which I think they will be next season, we won't see my mate Jamal at the back anymore. Hopefully we'll have Botman. Hopefully we'll have Shared, Burn. They're all comfortable on the ball. So if you've got centre halves who are that good on the ball, that aspect isn't as important. But if you can have a keeper who comes out, sweeps up, cleans up, commands the area, I think that's a very important trait, especially in the Premier League. When you're playing, half the teams in the Premier League probably do play a little bit more direct than normal, and you're gonna have some days where there's just lumping long balls and set pieces after set pieces. So if you got someone the size of Nick Pope who comes out and grabs the ball and commands his area, like Keegan said, I think that's very important. And it's the one area that Dubravka, even though I love him as a keeper, he's been fantastic for us as a shot stopper. He can get a little bit susceptible when you're lumping long balls on him all day. So I think it's a no-brainer signer for us for that price. And I think he's really going to assist the way Howe wants to play in terms of pushing us up 10, 15 yards up the pitch.
No, definitely. And as you said, take nothing away from Martin Dubravka. He's been absolutely great for us. I still rate him as a keeper. I think he is still a decent shot stopper for us. I think he's saved us more points than I sort of think he probably should have been relied upon to save us at times, with the amount of shots that he was having to try and save. But the big thing for me is it's competition for places. It's not that if Martin Dubravka gets injured, we're back to Darlow or Gillespie or Woodman. It's back to it's back to almost the days where we had Shea Given and Harper, Steve Harper, competing for that sort of position and pushing each other all the way. And if one of them did get injured, there wasn't really a drop off in quality, and so we carried on as we normally would. So that to me is a huge bonus from having him there, and it'll push Martin Dubravka, or Martin Dubravka will push Nick Pope, depending on who gets the nod for the number 1 jersey. It is worth noting that Freddie Woodman has left the club permanently, has joined Preston North End, I think it was.
Yeah.
So young keeper, came up through the academy, joined while his dad was actually the goalkeeping coach at the club. But he's been out on loan. He's played in lower leagues for various clubs. I think he had a stint at Swansea, but he went out last season. Hardy's got a kick. Well, Hardy's got a game for the club that he was at last season. I can't remember off the top of my head where he was.
Bournemouth.
Was it Bournemouth? Was it? Right.
Yep.
Which is a little bit disappointing. He's 25 now, and I thought he was a little bit younger than that still. So at 25, you've got to be thinking, yeah, he needs like first team football. He needs to be getting regular action. And it's probably just his time to kind of go and make a new chapter for himself. So I hope he does well. He goes with all my best wishes, and hopefully he kicks on and sort of like gets his career back on track a little bit. So good for him. So on to the breaking news that isn't necessarily news. So there's some rumors and some stories going around from websites, from one website in particular. Hasn't been retweeted or picked up by anyone else, which leads me to be a little bit suspicious of the source. They don't particularly have a great track record, it has to be said. So, but the news is that apparently Hugo Ekitike has his agent has annoyed the club enough, and the Newcastle United hierarchy have actually pulled out, walked away from the deal, and will be seeking a striker elsewhere. Now, how much of this I believe, how much of it is just completely made up bullshit just to generate clicks, as Dimmy was saying off air before we started. Now, Dimmy, what do you make of the story? Before we actually get into it, like if it's real, if it was real, what do we make of it? How much credence do you put on that particular report coming out?
Probably less than 2%. So very, very, very little. I mean, the journalist or the person in question and the website in question, I don't think they've got the best track record, like as you said, of breaking news and beating other journalists, local journalists, international journalists to the story. And something like that where Newcastle have officially pulled out and are pursuing other options, you'd think by now, I think that broke about an hour and a half ago our time, you'd think by now it'd be being picked up everywhere and going crazy, and it hasn't. So it might still end up that way. I mean, he might have just jumped the gun, that certain journalist, and throw something out there. It might still end up that way if the agent keeps demanding ridiculous fees. And I think there's going to be a point, which probably won't be yet, maybe in a week and a half, that the club's going to have to think, look, if this agent's not budging and he wants stupid amounts of commission and stupid amounts of fees, we may need to look elsewhere, because obviously the longer you leave it, you want to get that player in by pre-season, start a pre-season, getting games, learning the club, learning the environment, and you don't want that delay. So I'm sure there'll be other targets on the list. So if it does prove to be true, not saying that this guy's got it right, but if it does go that way and the agent fees are too much, I wouldn't be too disheartened that we've moved on. But as you said, yeah, the source it's come from and the fact that no one else has said anything leads me to believe that it's throwing a certain proverbial paper on the wall and seeing if it sticks.
Indeed. I mean, the talk of it is that there's been an agreement in place with the club and with the players' terms for 3 weeks, and now the agent's been stalling. He wants more fees. He's been touting his player to AC Milan, to PSG, to Real Madrid, to anyone and everyone that he could. Now, for me, that just rings alarm bells anyway. So, you don't really want to have a player with an agent like that at your club anyway, because I think down the line it's just going to end up with a whole heap of problems. So, I mean, Keegan, what do you make of it? And do you see that if it was to be true, do you see merit in us walking away from it at this point and just saying, right, look, enough's enough. Well, we might come back to you later, but we might not. It's on you now.
No, that's pardon me. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense with the whole story. Why would they pull the offer when the offer is actually to the club? So the offer will be there regardless. It's the agent fees that obviously are the sticking point, and he's trying to be an agent and get more money for himself and stuff like that. But pulling the fee, it just seems stupid because they've agreed the fee. Like, it's not a problem between the two clubs. It's a problem between the club and the agent. So, yeah, that's why I don't think there's any truth to it, because it actually makes not much sense to pull an offer that's got nothing to do with the club. Yeah, I just don't understand it. And the worst bit is when you get outlets like this that publish stories, they gain legs because other less reputable outlets like them will do a story about their story, and then that's how it just snowballs out of control. So for all the fans out there, I think you sort of get a fair idea of which journalists and which outlets you can trust, and then unless it comes from them, I think treat it with a pinch of salt. That's how I operate, and I encourage most other people to operate that way too.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a growing number of accounts that people do trust, and the rest of them seem to just be background noise. But everyone's so desperate for any kind of news at the moment that people are paying attention to it, and I'm the same, and we're having a talk about something that we're all in agreement that we don't believe, but we're still having a chat about it because it's like, well, it's exciting news. But you make a good point as well, though. If the offer was pulled, you would imagine there'd be some news coming out of the French club side as well as just random Twitter rumblings. So, let's just watch this space. It may be that it has happened. We don't know. We'll wait and see. I've got my Twitter feed up at the moment, and doesn't look like there's a lot of other news breaking on that particular topic. Although Football Daily does actually have, and I believe Craig is doing his best with our Twitter account and has retweeted it, of Nick Pope arriving at St James's Park. So there's video footage of him arriving at the club, at the ground. So that's actually great to see.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry about this whole Pope thing as well. I think what a really smart bit of business is we're probably going to sell Darlow. We've already got rid of Woodman. That money is probably going to pay for Pope. And then we're still going to have, Pope or Dubravka and maybe what's his name? The other keeper. Gillespie, yeah. He might be the third choice, which, I mean, as long as next year we don't have a stage where we have to name 2 keepers on the bench, we're probably in a good spot, aren't we?
Well, I think that's the point, isn't it? It's like I see a lot of people complaining that we're not signing this kind of guaranteed out and out number one keeper. That's a huge improvement on Dubravka. I think he probably is actually a bit of an improvement in certain areas and certain key areas, like we've all said, that kind of relate to how Eddie Howe wants to play the football. But if you think about it, one thing that we've never had under Ashley is squad depth, because it was literally about getting enough players in that as long as we can get enough games out of them, it doesn't matter if they're injured for bits and pieces, as long as we get enough games to get enough points to stay up, then that's all he cared about. We're beyond that now. We need to have that rotational ability. We need to be able to have cover for injuries where we don't significantly weaken the squad if we have one or two players out injured, because we want to push on in the league. We want to see if we can finish top half. We want to have a decent cup run. So getting that squad depth and getting that competition for places is actually a lot more important than what it ever has been for the last 14 years. And that's something definitely that we need to sort of keep in mind with a lot of these seemingly, I hesitate to say underwhelming signings, because I think Nick Pope is actually a really great bit of business, but they're not that superstar signing. And I don't think we will make those big marquee signings and splash a lot of cash. Certainly not at the moment.
But it's just smart.
It's really important. Smart business.
Sorry, mate. Smart business, because you're thinking, I mean, there was talk about Lottie at left back. Atletico Madrid were quoting us 25, 35 million euros. You're thinking to yourself as a club, do we spend 30 million on a goalkeeper on a left back like Lottie? 40 million were quoted for Henderson. You have to balance your books. You have to think, is goalkeeper and left back, we can find good quality English proven players. If we can save a quarter of the money, I mean, it's a no-brainer. There might come a time where we're spending 50 million on every single position, but that time is not now. So it's very smart business getting Pope for 10 and Target for 12. It definitely gives you a lot more leeway with attacking that front half of the pitch that we need some help in.
Oh, definitely. And that kind of leads really nicely onto something else that's doing the rounds at the moment. And this could be a potential huge signing on a free transfer. And that is Christian Eriksen has apparently turned down Man United. Not sure whether or not he wants to go back to Tottenham. And we have had the odds of him joining Newcastle slashed by the bookies down to 2-1, which doesn't happen unless they've had an insider tip or they know something, or there's been a huge spot of betting on that player. So for me, I mentioned off air, it is a shame that he's not at Brentford again for another season, because they were the ones that did take a chance on him, so to speak. He's coming back off his heart surgery, and it's sort of like great story that he's back in football, and he had undoubted quality for the player. But it is that kind of, well, someone had to take the risk. Someone had to kind of make that first step, and Brentford were the club that did it. And I think they benefited greatly from him being there. I think he kind of kept them going in some pretty rocky times last season. But what do you make of that particular signing if it were to come off, Keegan? And do you think that's going to be likely, or do you still see him going off to a more European-ready club at the moment?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be a good signing. I mean, he's better than what we've got, so that's an improvement. The thing that I don't get is with Tottenham, like something frosty must have happened with Tottenham. Like, if they were still on really good terms and he loved the place, I mean, you think he'd just go straight back there. But the fact
with
that
Champions
he
League
has
football as well, yeah,
exactly, yeah. So, yeah, that's probably the bigger question. What happened there, and why hasn't he gone back for nothing? Like, they don't even have to outlay any money, and it still hasn't happened. I can understand not playing for Man United at the moment, because that's just a revolving door of players and managers, and it's no sustainability at all. Like, everything changes every second season. I mean, it's a dumpster of a place at the moment. But I mean, if he comes to us, I mean, that'd be a great signing for nothing as well. What about you, Dimmy?
yeah,
What do you
for a
think
free
about
transfer, yeah.
it?
Oh, it's again, if it comes off, it's again a great use of resources. I mean, a player of his quality at his top form is going to be worth tens of millions of dollars, and he was back when he was starring for Tottenham and starring for Denmark. So I think a player of his quality is, for me, on a free transfer, an absolute no-brainer. And like you said, Keegan, I think he's an upgrade on potentially that Shelby role that he may play. He may play a little bit deeper alongside Bruno. And I think if you've got a midfield duo of Eriksen and Bruno and Big Joe, a trio with Big Joe, I think that's very, very tasty. And I think the way we want to play, again, it does suit Eriksen. Is sensational on the ball. He sees a pass. He links up well. He's for me, it's a no-brainer. And I think if we can convince him to come to Tyneside, it'd be a massive fill-up for us. And it would really, I think, give us a shot in the arm going into the season, thinking we're starting to build some sort of team here. And again, by not spending that much money, if we get him on a free transfer, yes, there's going to be wages, but his wages aren't going to be hundreds, $200,000 or $300,000 like some clubs in Birmingham are playing at the moment. But there's ways to use your money. So if we can, again, it's smart business. If we get Eriksen done, I mean, happy days.
Dimmi pulling the controversy out the bag there. Trying to start some beef. No, he would be an absolutely fantastic signing if we could pull that one off. I mean, he's got quality on the ball. It's another player that sits in the midfield that we can feel when the ball gets to them, they're not going to do something stupid. They're going to work hard. They're going to pick out those key passes. They're going to be comfortable on the ball, and it just gives us that extra player that we're comfortable in possession with, and that's a big thing that Eddie Howe wants to do. So, it's all just ticking the right boxes. And as you said, I mean, he's not going to be on huge wages. We're not in the position, and it doesn't look like we're willing to pay those stupid wages at the moment, which is important as well. Otherwise, I think if we were going to be paying those sorts of wages out, I think we'd probably have Lingard by now as well. I think that's probably not dead. I wouldn't be surprised to see if we did actually get Jesse Lingard before the end of the transfer window. He doesn't have any offers because he's been asking for too much money. So it's one of those things where, it's good to be sensible and build a squad up and sort of walk before you can run, I guess, is the big ticket for us. So those are obviously the three big things for us. Huge news on the Pope transfer. I think it's probably worthwhile sort of looking at some of the other transfers that, maybe we think are close. I mean, the Botman one is still dragging on. There's been some talk that AC Milan are very close to pulling out of that deal. They can't match our offer. There's a couple of reports coming out from Italian newspapers, which again kind of comes into this. Do you take it with a pinch of salt because they're trying to save face as they're Italian clubs? It's like, he wants to come to us, but we can't afford to buy him because it's oil money. And is that going to be, they're making excuses because we're putting more money up and the clubs agreed to sell to us. There's still some talk that Lille, that they want some extra cash for him. But, do we pay that extra money and sort of risk other clubs yanking the prices up as well? Do you see this continuing on for some time yet, Dimmi? Or do you reckon that we're just going to end up, again, walking away from this one at some point because it's like, look, we need to get players in?
I'm going to put on my Nostradimmi hat, and I reckon if not this time next week or by the end of next week, we're going to have a resolution either way. I think something's brewing, something's coming. I mean, there was talk yesterday by his centre-back partner on TalkSport that Newcastle were a team to watch. So that was quite interesting by Jose Fonte, I think it was, the former Southampton centre-back. So I think there's going to be a resolution with that one. I believe Lille are happy to sell to us. They've obviously sold to us, I believe, before with obviously Cabaye, and I think Debussy was at Lille as well at the time. So there's definitely history between the clubs, but I think they're probably wanting maybe more upfront cash and we want to drag it out over a longer period. I reckon that could be the sticking point. So I think watch your space. The next week, let's say by the end of next week, I think we'll have a resolution, and hopefully it sounds like Milan don't have the money clearly they don't have the money that we do, and hopefully that might be the final straw that gets us to win this transfer finally.
I think it'd be a huge statement signing if we do, because I mean, hanging in this long, I mean, people have been saying, oh, let's pull out. It's like, not getting messed around. The players just sort of doesn't want to join us. It's, to me, it's worth hanging in for these sorts of players because we're not battling for scraps at the bottom of the table anymore. We're fighting clubs for top draw players. You're going to have competition, and we don't have European football yet, and we haven't quite got that name yet. People are joining for the promise of what might be, which not every player is going to be up for. But, Botman seemed happy enough to join us in January. We couldn't agree a fee. But for me, and I'll get I want your thoughts on this, Keegan, as well. If the player didn't want to join us and was properly against it, and you had AC Milan on the table, would you not expect the player to come out and say, I do not want to join that club. I want to join AC Milan. I'll put a transfer request in. That's the club I want to go to. I don't want to join the other club. Would you not see anything like that happening?
Yeah, well, I think the transfer request is the sign. Like, as soon as a player puts in a transfer request, that means I want to go, and it's publicly known pretty much which club they actually want to go to. But I'm confident because until Target signed, there was nothing, and then like a day or two before he signed, it was like, I think they're going to sign Matty Target, and the same things happened with Pope as well. I get the feeling that maybe Dan Ashworth likes to keep his cards close to his chest, the way he operates and stuff like that. He doesn't like things playing out in the media, and that I'd much prefer it that way too. Just when it's going to happen, it'll happen. It doesn't need to be weeks of speculation and innuendo and he's coming, he's going, he's not coming, he's going there. Like, just if it's going to happen, it'll just come up and happen. And all these other people who claim they know, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk every day as we've been through. There's like people spouting stories left, right, and center. I think it was the Daily Mail was putting out something about the fact that Newcastle are going to have to cash in on St Maximin because they need to fund their summer transfers. It's like, I mean, I get it. It's like we sell newspapers, we generate clicks at the moment because we're all so hungry and desperate for some news and looking for that next player or next sort of transfer. But I mean, come on, at least give it a better effort than these sorts of stories that we keeps hearing coming out. So I think that's probably it for today. Just keep it a nice short one. Just nice to have some breaking news to have a chat about. I don't know if you guys have anything else that you want to cover on any of those topics, Dimmy.
No, we've covered it well. I want to keep to my prediction, and hopefully I can show one up again on Lee if I get it right. Botman this time next week will have a resolution in our favour.
Cool. Let's hope your streak continues. And Keegan, as always, good to have both of you on here. So for anyone who's listening and watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe buttons. So we're trying to build. We're building quite cleverly now. We're getting a bit of a roll on. So we're keen to keep pushing that out. We're having a great time doing all of this. So yeah, we'll call it there for tonight. And thank you very much for everyone. And we'll hopefully get some more pods out in the near future with some extra confirmed signings. So catch you later, everyone.